Welcome back to Weebology. Thanks, y'all, for coming back to class. I am your mentally recovering Professor Ricky.
Hey, guys, I'm your Ethan professor.
So last time I had maybe half of my normal brain cells, and I think I've started to climb the Brainiac ladder again, which is nice.
Yeah, he's slowly clawing them back.
I got rid of anything in my apartment that even looks like pastel. Now it's completely monotone and gray, and it's good for a mental environment. Most labs are white for that exact reason, just pristine, no source of color, and I think that's gonna help the whole brain recovery. You know,
I think most labs are white so they can crush your soul every single day when you go in.
You know, I think it's because of brain optimization. Maybe crushing the soul is the ticket to big brain time, big brain plays. Just lack of soul.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
by going full robotic.
I don't know.
So a little before we get started, I walked in here, and Ethan was on his phone watching something very
Guys, I'm
intensely.
addicted, okay?
He told me I'm addicted to watching people win at gambling.
It doesn't have to be winning. You could be losing, too.
Okay, so what I heard is secondhand gambling is addictive, is just as addictive.
Well, here's the difference, though.
Yeah?
I'm not spending any money to do it.
It is very true.
Guys, I'm still as poor as I was before we started this. You know what I mean?
That is true, and we did watch a video before we kicked this episode off, and my goodness, some people out here...
I mean, fucking Nora.
They're winning some stupid money. Stupid. Well,
Yeah,
they're also
we watched this guy win $400,000 on a slot machine.
He played every slot at a table of blackjack and won them all.
Yeah, it was pretty lucky.
It was, I can't help but watch people like that. I mean, that seems like you're playing with your heart. Even if you do a little bit with your head, it all comes down to your heart. Because he even knows he's being degenerate.
Yeah, he keeps calling himself a fucking degenerate. he's like, Australian, obviously.
Clearly. So the show we're talking about today kind of taps at both the head and the heart. Ethan.
I thought you were going to say taps at both, being a degenerate and... I was like, I don't know where this is going.
Ethan, what show are we talking about today?
We are talking about my number one show of 2019.
And my number two.
Dr. Bone.
Oh, you really fumbled that last bit.
Wait, what? Oh, Stone, no!
Dr. Stone. It was on many a list of the top anime of 2019, and it's about high time we got to the bottom of it. It really was good.
So let me start off quickly. So there is an Anime Summit Discord where all of their listeners, or a lot of their listeners, are in there, and they kind of talk about things, related to anime, obviously, and also not related to anime.
Shout out to everyone, and that Discord is so fun.
Right. It's a big ass group, so it's cool to get different perspectives. Mm-hmm. But they asked everyone for their top 10 of 2019.
Yes.
And obviously, I put my top 5 that I had the video on and we talked about.
Right.
And then I think the rest of mine was like Mob Psycho, Dororo, Kengan Ashura.
Good. Kengan Ashura made your top 10?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was an honorable mention, so that means it's in your top 10, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
Shit, I don't remember the other two. But the point is, people were asking me why I didn't put Fire Force. And they were like bitching at me and being like, Dr. Stone is better than Fire Force.
100%. And if we're going to get into it...
Wait, what do you mean 100%?
100%. Fire Force, I don't think would have made my top 10. If it did, it would have been at 10.
That was okay, great.
Yeah.
So we both are in agreement that Dr. Stone is a better show. Now, here's what their basically main crux of their argument was. They thought it was like a cooler universe, and this one is kind of Dr. Stone is semi-based in reality.
Yeah, it's cool, but still feels like the whole hook of the plot is very supernatural, it feels like, but everything else is very grounded. I mean, it's not breaking any rules necessarily.
And, I mean, there's like one dumb scene where Tsukasa punches a lion. That was the only dumb scene.
That's pretty, and he doesn't punch him. He Saitamas him into a tree. Yeah,
one punched him into a tree.
For sure.
But my problem is everything else is like fairly fine, whatever. And then, Fire Force is basically a show about spontaneous combustion, Like people all over the world are spontaneously combusting. Oh, that's a really big tongue twister.
I think I just gave you some of my small brain time from last week.
So anyway, they're combusting. They're becoming like these infernal demon things. And then there's this fire force to basically go out and stop them. And a lot of those guys have the ability to manipulate fire in some way. They're pyrokinetic.
Yes.
Okay. That is definitely cool.
Okay.
But I think Dr. Stone is a more unique show in that, I feel like Fire Force is basically a ripoff of Blue Exorcist in a lot of ways.
I have a couple thoughts on all. I think I agree with you everywhere except the point where you hit it's a ripoff of Blue Exorcist, because it does have the religious angle. It does have.
But what I'm saying is, I think it is more unique. Like
yes,
Dr. Stone is more unique
100%.
Than whatever that Fire Force is.
The thing with Fire Force for me is the whole idea of fighting fire with fire. I was really hot on it. Fire. I was really hot on it early in the season, and as I started watching, I started to notice some stuff that like. The fan service is caked on. It feels like an afterthought, like a spoiler on a Honda, and it felt weird, and it just like you can't not know it's there. There was one character and she was cool. Yeah, I don't care, but she was cool. But up until like all the way to 80% into the season, she was just the fan service character. It would cut through the cool parts just to throw fan service. I will say that it does take major points for animation. I think it was David Production turn that one on.
Right. So, and then that was their other main like argument is like the animation's so much better. But to me, when you talk about a show, I feel like you could if you wanted to say shit like that, you need to like do a bunch of different categories and then rank them that way.
Right.
If it's a heads up show battle, you have to rank it in a way like that, like your video did essentially for your top 5 of 2019.
You got to set the criteria about what you're judging.
But it's hard to have a conversation about why one show is better in your opinion than the other if you're just going to say animation. Because what are you going to say? It's like, okay, it's clearly not as heavily animated, but it's like the themes of Dr. Stone, in my opinion, are so strong.
Yes.
That they outweigh anything that happened in Fire Force.
I think the way I put it in my video when I talked about it as my number 2 pick of the year stands even sitting on that list is that it's hard to compare it to other shonen because while still literally being a shonen in every sense of the word, it's published in Shonen Jump. It is taking every trope in the book and using it in some creative way. It still feels like it's in a genre all of its own. So it's really hard to make a meaningful comparison when you're saying Dr. Stone and one other show. When you're comparing against all the shows of a year or all the shows of a season, you have a better time seeing, the forest instead of the trees, and you can see where Dr. Stone's quality stacks up in a group of many dozens of anime. When it goes head-to-head against another show, I may have mentioned it in my video as well, that it doesn't really have the fluid action fights or like the Sakuga a lot, but that's not what this show's about. That's not why you're here to watch Dr. Stone. You're here to watch it flesh out an immensely incredible, novel premise. I mean, this is something that I don't think I've seen anything that's similar to this in most other stories. I mean, I've said it in the past jokingly, but I think it merits an honest discussion. Ethan, do you believe that Dr. Stone is an isekai?
I mean, right?
Yeah, right?
But no. I mean...
Exactly. The same way can you say, does this show take place in the future or the past?
The future.
Right, but you're working with Stone Age tech. So did you travel back? Did you travel back in time or forward in time? Okay.
Shut up.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. No, I won't, because that's one of the reasons why I really love this show. That the premise took us forward 3,700 years in the future, yet back 2 million years in human technology. It's that story dynamic that you can say it's the future, but it's not quote unquote the future that we know of in. It's just the future without human involvement, and basically just hit the reset button. So, Ethan, 10,000 feet, what is this show about? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I'll do that in a second.
You're really hot on this, dude.
Well, no. So my top 10 list was Dr. Stone, Promised Neverland, Vinland Saga, Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan season 3 part 2, Mob Psycho 2, One Punch Man season 2, Kengan Ashura, Dororo, and then Cautious Hero. Just because I thought it was funny as hell.
Cautious Hero is pretty funny.
It was so funny.
So that's interesting. Even My Hero didn't make your top 10.
It was only halfway done. I'm not gonna
Fair enough.
But the other thing is, I dead ass would have put Aruma on my list. If that was allowed in my like weird.
I think it could have. You had half a season. You had as big of a.
Well, I don't like doing like a halfway season thing and being like, oh, that was in 2019.
That's fair.
And in 2020. No,
that's fair.
But so yeah, that's my thing. So okay, 5,000 million feet in the air. Here's basically what Dr. Stone is about. It starts off with a Japanese youth in high school.
Youths.
He basically is a science nerd, and he just basically wants to go to space. Is basically his whole like life.
That's his whole
goal.
shtick. Yeah.
And his dad is actually an astronaut, but you don't learn that till later. But that's pretty cool.
Spoilies.
Not really.
Yeah.
So anywho, this like weird fog power blast thing sweeps over the Earth.
It is very odd, and that's out of nowhere. There's basically you kind of have the setup of
fine. What happens when that happens?
Well, okay, everyone gets turned to stone.
Thank you.
No, but I'm saying you
don't interrupt me.
Oh no, no, don't interrupt me. Well, I had to get to the point. There's also other characters that we meet.
Taiju, and Chicky.
Yuzuria. Yuzuria. Yuzuria or whatever. Riha. There's like a love. There's a love interest there, and Taiju's like literally on the cusp of confessing his love of over 5 years to this girl, and then green light out of nowhere. Everyone's petrified. Statues, planes crash, things crumble, and then we wait. We just wait.
Yeah. So Senku literally counts the entire time that he's petrified.
Psychotic.
And becomes unpetrified in 3,700 years.
That's so crazy.
Now, at this point, obviously, the world has recovered from humanity. And, like, basically, if you've watched, I forget what it was called. It was, like, Without Humans or something like that on Discovery Channel. It shows you, like, what happens if all humans just vanish.
Uh-oh. So basically, they did it first.
Well, they did that part, right, where, like, buildings will actually,
Thank you, Discovery Channel.
I think he said F-U's Discovery Channel. No, so like buildings will fall down and they'll be reincorporated back into like, different parts of the mineral table and shit like that.
Ooh.
Like obviously steel doesn't,
just happen. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't decompose or anything like that.
Right.
But that's the one criticism I have of this show.
What do you think?
Okay, steel and all these things will not really decompose even after 3,000 years. Like it'll oxidize and it'll probably like get like I just don't think that all those minerals just vanish.
We saw you're saying we should have seen some infrastructure.
Ruins. There's got to be
some
ruins.
Okay, and that's funny. That's actually funny you say that.
3,000 years is a long time.
That is, and we have ruins from even further back that were not steel that we do see that are still standing. So
that's the question. Like
that's a real gripe. That's a good gripe.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, brick grout or cement that goes between bricks. I don't think it's... Anyway.
Well, caulk also would be involved in ruins, Ethan, just in small amounts.
Caulk is rubber, though, and that will go away after 3,000 years.
Well, all shucks, then. I was hoping for some bathroom ruins.
No, so, like, I just don't know, does cement between bricks last that long? I think yes, because of all the old cities that we have.
It has to.
Look at like Vienna and like cities like that are like older than hell.
Yeah, and they had much different uses for different minerals for building and different ways of doing so, and they're still kicking around.
Well, that kind of makes you wonder though, is like our current building methods going to stand the test of time? I don't know that I think it. I think old building methods were meant to last a very long time.
As an engineer, do you feel that modern building and like architecture is built with a planned obsolescence in mind? At some point, it's meant to be replaced.
I don't think it's planned obsolescence, but I do think, and this is kind of the theme of the show, there's kind of an opulence and a kind of novelty to what we do now. Whereas back in the past, it was all for like utilitarianism. It was like, this has to last. You know what I mean?
This is what we get. Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, castles and shit still exist from like a fuckload of years ago. Right.
Right.
And so I don't know. I just think it was built different. And you know, pyramids, those efforts are.
What about those things? Right. Pyramids. I mean, shit. Those things are still standing for like 5,000 years.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I don't know how they built them. I don't think anyone really knows how they built them. But like the fact that shit like that. Well, no, there is caverns. I was gonna say maybe it's just like a stack of rocks.
It's a stack. No, it's an intricate web of.
Anyway, back to whatever Dr. Stone is. Dr. Stone is basically him and his two friends rebuilding society, and specifically the pillar of science. However, there is another person that they awaken to try to help them with some of the tasks.
Well, it's essentially
Tsukasa.
Tsukasa was raised as a reaction because they were being chased down by a lion, right?
Yes.
And they're like, well, shit, we literally do not have, we are so primitive, we do not have the brute strength or the leverage of technology to help us with defeating an actual apex predator, so let's go find one of our own. So let's go. They awoke a. They do figure out how to awake people, and they really can't do it in mass, but they can do it. They have the solution. And they awaken.
Funny what you did there.
Thank you. I'm full of them today.
Chemical solution.
Oh God, I am a professor after all. Tsukasa is this brutish. He was considered the strongest high school kid in Japan, right? And he basically, as soon as he's awoken, he knocks the lights out of this lion, clocks it for 15 feet of airtime into a tree, and he seems like a really sweet guy at first. And
can we talk about this scene though? Because I'm like,
this scene right here.
This concerned a lot of people.
Okay, hit me.
And so, like, everyone said, like, oh, after that I was done. And then my question is, but you can watch Fire Force where they're flying around with fire blasting out of their feet. Like, I think it is more realistic.
Oh, are you saying that
to knock the fuck out of a lion than it is to fly around with fire?
I can kind of see where these people are coming from. It might be a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but the show has already set itself up as a show that is bound by our laws. You know,
really,
very much.
What law is it where everyone gets petrified? I think you got to give it like just a smidge of like wiggle room.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I recently just watched a documentary on Netflix called The Game Changers. It's about like athletes eating certain ways, and they follow one of them, and he's officially in the Guinness Book of Records for carrying the most weight a human being has ever carried, 1,200 pounds and change.
Bjorn?
The dude with the mad chops, the mad sideburns. This isn't like Strongman or Iron Man. He literally just is a yoke, 33 feet or meters, something like that. And it was in the documentary that came out last year.
From Iceland.
Sure. I forgot his name. But
the mountain.
Not the mountain.
Okay.
It's a different dude. But if a guy can lift 1,200 pounds, sustain it over 33 meters, who's to say a guy couldn't punch the lights out of a lion? That's all I'm saying. It's not that unbelievable.
Well, I mean, like, I'm kind of on your side,
right?
Here.
It's like, not that unbelievable.
I think Mike Tyson in his prime could knock the shit out of a lion.
Ethan, what do you think is the largest mammal you can knock out in one punch?
Yeah, so we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like, dogs are an obvious.
You get one clean swing. You don't have to chase it down. You get one clean swing.
It just stands there.
Lights out. Yeah.
Llama. I could buck a llama.
Hell yeah, dude, a llama. I think for me, I want to say like a little Sebastian sized horse, not little Sebastian, mind you, he's the treasure, but just like a miniature horse.
I wonder what a donkey. Does a real horse have a really like strong jaw, or is it a glass jaw and you just instantly knock it out?
I would make sure that swing is good, because you know if.
But I will say we love
out.
Animals and we would never hit animals. Okay, now that said, which one would you kick at? Whose ass would you kick?
Definitely zebras. Fuck them with their stripes. Fuck
right?
You're just a
sassy referee.
You're just a sassy horse. You're just a horse with fashion sense, if that. I have zebra hate. No, but definitely hypothetical. But I don't think punching a lion as a peak human being is out of the question. So everyone who's like I'm turning it off now. You missed a good show.
I mean, like really Patrick said that like at one point.
Did RoboPat say that
at that point?
No way. Yeah. Come on, man.
And then like a bunch of people in that chat who, for some reason, didn't like my number one pick of Dr. Stone.
This seems like a really sticking point with you.
Okay, here's the thing, guys. I literally said, look, guys, I'm a scientist. This gets to me.
This hits me at a level. But yeah, so we have a guy that can, on screen, punch the lights out of a lion. So this creates an interesting dichotomy,
here's my second question. Sorry. I'm going back.
Don't interrupt me.
What is more unbelievable? That somebody can punch a lion and knock it out, or that somebody can count for 3,000 years?
That's actually, you know what? You're
right.
Or
that they know every scientific fact on Earth.
Honestly, door number 2 is the most unreasonable thing.
Of
counting. I think he said like 6 sextillion seconds. Something crazy.
Folks at home, can you do that?
I can count to maybe 20.
At max, 11.
I have it get stuck on 26. I don't know what comes after that.
20,
Maybe my brain's not 100% healed. But yeah, I think what Tsukasa I actually have a problem with as a character. I like what he presents to furthering the story. Not necessarily his philosophy conflict, which we'll get into in a second, but the power dichotomy in nature has just shifted from Senku and Taiju against nature versus now Tsukasa and them. He can bully their asses, run laps around them, and they just awoken the only threat besides nature. They already had it on lock. They already kind of had nature under control, structures, rudimentary laboratory, some kind of weaponry, and then they awoke Tsukasa. Oh shit. Then everything would have been great if he was like, yeah, let's revive the people, let's get science back on board. Ethan, does he want that?
Yeah, so Tsukasa decides that he wants only young people to be revived.
And why exactly is that?
Because the old people destroyed the world and like basically set up, power structures and things like that. And like in a lot of ways, yes, that's true. A lot of the bad things that happen are all man-made and things like that, right? The problem is if you have no fucking organization, you can't do anything.
And I don't think it was necessarily the organization.
And then he puts himself as emperor in his freaking
throne.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't the organization because he definitely created a hierarchy built on strength, sure. But what I had a problem with after I was getting to the end of it was, wait a minute, he basically said the root of the evil is science's application in the hands of the older folk. Basically wanting to use modern technology to give us and all of the modern things that we right now have the luxury of having. But that comes with, like you said, organizational structures, society, economics. That gets to everybody.
Guys, we live in a society.
We live in a society. You want to know how I got these scars, Ethan?
Scarjo?
So that's the thing with me. Is he only wanted young people because he translated the young to being pure and just never having science. What if he had awoken another Senku? What if he had awoken another science-crazed boy genius? Would he just have knocked him out then? Like, he would have been smart enough to get away. He at some point would have awoken another person wanting science back under the age of 30.
Yeah, I mean, so he's got a lot of problems with his philosophy. And
right.
Like, I don't know if he is pure of heart. Like, we can't really tell from what we've seen so far. I assume we'll find out in Stone Wars, which is the next arc. But,
yeah.
Like, to me, it would be people that are, like, immature mentally are easier to control, right? He's got a lot of really big bruisers that are dumbasses. And he can easily like control them, right?
Yeah.
Is it a manipulative thing that he's after, or is it more like he has a genuine problem with the morality of older, people and what they do with technology in a lot of ways?
I think you said it all there.
Yeah, and we don't really know whether he actually hates science or not. We just know that he doesn't want to revive everyone is his main sticking point with Senku.
I think it's in the middle somewhere what you just said. I think with Tsukasa, it's basically he has what I would say isn't necessarily an evil intention, an evil motive, but I think his releasing of the younger folk is not necessarily a physical dominance, but a philosophical one. Like, he can basically say, you haven't hit adulthood, you haven't owned things, you haven't been in charge of stuff. Follow my philosophy, and we can make it happen. So he's basically kind of indoctrinating with the power of will instead of the power of strength into his cause, but he is also smart enough to awaken some big old baddie bruisers, so who are dumb as bricks, to be honest. Like, they're just true cavemen. So he's building his army up over yonder, over hither, basically Senku,
hither and thither.
yeah.
So essentially, there is a conflict between Tsukasa and then Senku, Taiju, and Yurizizu, or whatever her name is.
Yuzuriwa?
I just hate her freaking name, first of all.
I'm going to call her Yuzu.
Or Yari or something. Like anything else.
Anything else. Yuzu.
Yeah, so there's a conflict between them where basically Senku says Tsukasa's going around and breaking statues.
Yes.
And Senku keeps saying, you're murdering them, like...
You're straight up killing them.
Yeah, there's a bit of a conflict there, and then he goes, well, either you do what I want, or I'll just kill you right now, Senku, because, like, it's going to come to some kind of head regardless, so you might as well just get to the end of it.
Right.
And so through hacks, Senku survives, and
he had a brain blast. See,
yeah. I mean, this is all like I guess like at least past this point, it's gonna be spoilers. I mean, we might as well just go into it.
There's some spoilers. We won't have to get into all of them, but this one you're gonna have to get into.
Just call it spoilers.
All right, spoilers it is. So that's what we're getting into right now is through science hack, big brain blast time. He does survive Tsukasa's assassination attempt.
His onslaught.
His onslaught of pure singular brute strength. And they realize, they have learned, Yuzu, Tanji, and whatever, Tanjiro. They all three of them learned through trying to create gunpowder. They accidentally set off a massive blast, and then they see a smokestack in the distance. Other people exist. It's not just them four. So they devise a plan where they have Tenju, right? Taiju?
He's smiling like a smug asshole right now.
Taiju?
Yeah, you know what it is.
I don't. I genuinely forgot because I'm too worried about Yuzu. So those two go off and infiltrate, kind of act as spies in the Kingdom of Strength, as it's called. And Senku goes to make first contact with this village, and this is where you meet the bulk of the cast for this particular season, I would argue. Who we meet first? Is it Koharu?
Yeah, Kohaku.
Kohaku, that's it. Kohaku is this... okay. We meet her, and I think it's important to bring up my one aesthetic problem with this entire show.
Their stupid-ass eyes?
Their eyes are so fucking far apart. It's like you went into a Skyrim character creator and said eye spacing and just went whoop all the way to the right.
So have you seen or even seen the picture of Clannad? It looks like that bad.
That's a really good way to put it. Oh god, they look so odd. Like there's an uncanniness. The show is beautifully drawn. Like honest to god, the backgrounds some of the best I've seen in 2019. But that character design is so bad, dude. So we do meet her.
But like the crazy part is like they're still all very attractive.
Yeah, they're meant to be like that's the one thing. We through means of saving Kohaku, whatever. I'm losing all these names. This is a big cast, by the way. He's taken back to the village, and he basically is ready to show off. He's a smart dude. He's like, oh shit, these people have been living here for some time now. And they've never heard of these scientific stuff, so they can assume that they've never even heard of science ever. So he's basically just big braining. I'm like, all right, about to wow them with some shit, with some equations and ramen, actually, at one point.
Yeah, so basically he comes to this village and he realizes he needs their help to rebuild scientific kingdom and society.
He needs manpower.
So he does a lot of things to kind of work on them and saying like, look, I need you guys to help me, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we don't accept outsiders at all.
Yes.
So he does go off with the kind of village
sorcerer.
Yeah, he calls himself a sorcerer, but it's just like rudimentary science, right?
He's a glorified geologist, essentially named
Absolutely.
Chrome. He might be one of my favorite characters in the whole show. I love Chrome.
The quote unquote fight they had in the beginning was amazing.
It's really, really fun. It was really fun. This is where I think what makes this shonen separate from the others really shine, because Senku is not trying to be a typical shonen protagonist. He's mischievous. He schemes. He's not necessarily a good guy. He uses his science for wholesome reasons, which is way different than a lot of scientists we see in a lot of shows. They're all like, I'm going to bring down my crazy mad scientists are death, destruction, and love of experimentation with no morality involved. Where at the end of the day, Senku, while he's a schemer and kind of mischievous and manipulates people a little bit, he is very wholesome and wants to use science to better humanity and I guess get to space. But at the end of the day,
well, I mean, so at this point you gotta realize like he is so much big brain compared to everyone else.
Oh yeah,
like he has to manipulate them into being smart.
Right.
But so like they're all dumb. They only have like survivor mentality, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how hunter and gatherers were, right?
But where I think he separates from other shonen protagonists is where, as some put a more traditional one and him, same situation, big brain time, primitive villagers, you need their help. One traditional shonen protagonist might say, oh, I feel bad about manipulating people, but I have to achieve my goal. Where Senku is just like, oh, hell yeah, I'm about to get me some manpower, baby. Like, he has no problem with it.
Yeah,
no
but I think it's
quandaries.
just like, I think it's really a Senku knows what he's doing is better for them, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's like a parent. They'll be assholes to you, but they're doing it for a reason, right? It's not because they're trying to piss you off.
It's like when you try like, I'm running away, Mom. I'm never coming back, and you start packing your bags. Your parents are going to snicker at you.
Or they're going to help you pack.
Yes, exactly. So that's exactly it. Yeah, Dip, you want to go outside? Hey, man, I remember me and my siblings doing this when we lived in Cleveland. We opened the door and 3 feet of snow would be out there. I'm not gonna run away, but it's cool though. I'm still mad at you. It's like my dad's like, all right, just get your shit upstairs.
Yeah, get your ass inside there, kiddo.
Yeah, right. So he's that's a good way to put it. He's almost sees himself as someone who is gonna have fun manipulating with these essentially monkeys, but better their lives at the same time. What are some of the ways that he tries to basically woo them and win them over with the power of science, Ethan?
Yeah, so he makes various scientific things. No, so at this point, this village really has like maybe bread and maybe fish because it's like kind of near the ocean.
That's really it, yeah.
And so what he decides to do is he decides to use foxtail millet.
Yes.
And make a basically prehistoric primordial ramen.
And I mean, to modern ramen, it's a far cry, as he says, but that's another great part of this show. Every little thing that we take for granted now, a primitive version of that is already light years ahead of these people. So they'll eat this and be like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever eaten in my life. And then slowly, one by one, picks off people from the village to come help him. Like, all right, I'm starting to pick up what you're putting down, science boy. All right. And he uses science to its absolute, highest capacity to basically do little things for each of these, villagers to basically woo them to the kingdom of science. For instance, they have two guards, Kinro and Ginro. I love these
and
two.
He basically plates their spears in different metals to make them look silver and gold
and give them an insane buff and durability.
Kin and Gin, right?
Essentially,
they both like gold or
silver.
So it does end up pulling them toward his team.
That's actually really interesting. I didn't even think about the whole gold and silver thing.
Yeah,
because one, the silver
King Kaku and King Kaku,
Kinro. Mm-hmm. He's super straight-laced. super like no nonsense bullshit, no fun dude, but he's very honorable. And then there's Ginro, who is all nonsense, all fun. He's a village guard, but their dichotomy together is probably the best character interactions in that entire village. At least for me, because I love Ginro. Like, him getting roped into shit, just begrudgingly, like, having to spin a generator turbine or some kind of thing. He will do it, but he's going to be a little bitch about it. Let's be real.
For sure.
But yeah, so he starts to incrementally increase the technological capacity of this village, and they start to kind of come over to his side. And there is a little bit of a race for time, is there not, as the season progresses? There's word of Tsukasa's kingdom of might and strength attacking because they found out Senku is alive.
Right, but so there is a character named Gin who was a quote-unquote mentalist in modern day that gets awoken. And he is basically tasked with going to this village to see if Senku is still alive.
Right.
So he finds out he is still alive.
Pretty handedly, to be honest.
And then he basically tells Senku, look, I'll join your side if you can do one thing for me.
What's that, my boy?
He wants cola.
Cola?
That's literally it.
He wants a soft drink.
He wants a Coca-Cola.
So he is a guy he's one of the few folks from the future. Or I guess the past. See, I don't know, dude. It feels like it's a past-future dichotomy. He's from the modern world as we know it.
Yes.
And it's important to know that the village people, that the reason why they're so primitive is because they're not just not from there. They're many generations into a society where they have known nothing else. So that's a really important point, because I actually think that Jen is it Jen or Gen? Harji or soft
Gene, but
whatever. So he basically, I don't think he actually is a mentalist. I think he recognizes he was just a smart and clever enough dude that, like, yeah, I am totally a mentalist.
No,
was he self-proclaimed like an actual mentalist in the modern day?
Yeah, because Senku said he knew him before. Somehow they literally knew each other.
You are right. You're right.
So what I love about his role that he plays is he plays the like directly manipulative role.
Yes.
But he also plays like a reality check for maybe like if you're not a scientist watching the show.
Yeah.
Being like the normal like everyman kind of like our age, where he would have a slight idea of how to do things, but not like a full-on scientific explanation.
Exactly. It's like,
so I love that dichotomy between the two of them. It's like, he is there to basically validate everything that Dr. Stone is saying, but to the audience.
Right.
Because you can accept what he's saying is real, but like having a backup essentially of like the normal guy telling you this is like, here's a basic idea of how you do it. I thought was really invaluable to the way they told the story.
That's a good point. I mean, he really does inject a point of relation between the average audience, non-quote science user, and the entire universe of the show, because not only that, he is the one who would say, dude, that's literally impossible. Like, there's no fucking way you're going to be making this or that. And he's like, bro, hold my cola.
But like, that's the thing. So like, he knows how insane it is to be like, I'm going to make plastic in the prehistoric
like,
world.
Holy shit, no, you're not.
Because like, I'm in the science field. I don't even know how I would make plastic with nothing. You know what I mean?
All my science is on a computer. I would have less of an equal idea on how to do it, let alone
But
you.
I'm just saying, like, it's just very, like, I think he did a lot for the show.
Yes,
to be like, how the fuck are you going to do that? Even though as a guy with modern knowledge of the things.
Right.
He just is, like, telling you how difficult it's going to be, which I love that, like, checks and balances. But the other piece I loved about him was he kind of provided another piece to the science. So, Senku has very hard science on lock, absolute lock.
For sure.
Gin has psychology. Very, very heavily relies on psychology to be a mentalist. That's what they are.
Right. That's how they do it. I get what you're saying, because to be a proper strategist, you'd need the hard calculation of how we go about this, how to calculate these things. But he was employed, hey, what's Tsukasa think in this moment? What's this person about to do based on what you know about him or what you can pick up? So yeah, it basically shows that a modern way of thinking, not necessarily a modern way of discovery, can be just as potent in an ancient world. That was one thing I was thinking. That's what made me think, is it just because he's a mentalist, or is he just equipped with modern ways of thinking that would never have been picked up? Like, the villagers only had 100 stories given to them by their predecessors, and that's what they use to navigate their world. That's all they get. And
yeah, so I have another problem with the whole village.
Okay, hit me.
So basically the way the village was founded was Senku's father and a group of astronauts were in space.
Wee-woo. Spoilers.
We said that a long time ago.
I'm just letting them know.
Fine. Insane spoilers.
Okay. I'm just letting them know.
His dad was in space along with like a bunch of basically astronauts.
Right.
In the International Space Station.
Mm-hmm.
And the second this all went off, they were still at the ISS.
Yes.
So they jump in a not a plane, a
drop pod,
a rocket,
yeah.
And they come back to Earth, and they basically do it in pairs.
Yeah.
And they try to like figure out what's going on. They come back and nobody's around, so they're like, "Fuck!" Everyone's fucking petrified. So they don't have the ability to go back to space, which is fine because the ISS, without constant like telemetry and things like that from NASA and these other organizations, will just fall out of the sky eventually.
Yes.
Because it is in
guided,
our gravity,
yeah,
but
right.
It will get pulled down, right? Orbit can only keep you there for so long without constantly correcting.
Yeah.
So, what?
Sorry, I'm just having a thought. Like, what at some point, if Senku waits long enough, would something fall out, or do you think it wouldn't stay up there for that long?
They already fell out.
Okay, they already all fell out. All right.
I think actually don't quote me, but I think his dad sees the ISS coming out of the sky. Like
oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like, oh, there's something dropped over there. We can use some parts. Okay. Yeah.
So essentially, they rebuild the village by just all basically producing with each other, and that's how they build the village.
Now I think I know where you're going with this.
I don't think you do.
Okay.
So they're all insane scientists.
Okay.
Because you're an astronaut. You have to be a good scientist.
Right.
How the fuck did they not create some more stuff to be able to give them like a leg up for their next generation? It's their own children. They can teach them as scientists.
That's
like,
something really funny.
I'm not understanding how they lost all this, because they literally are teaching their kids
3,700 years of oral tradition, maybe.
That doesn't need to be oral tradition.
That is the one thing. You're right. It doesn't.
There's 7 astronauts.
Right. So what you're saying is you're saying they could have come up with a way, maybe, because it didn't seem like they had like paper or anything, just anything of a lasting value. That's why they went with the kind of making a record out of glass. Because that's the one thing that's gonna last. They know, because he had no timeline. He's not, Senku's gonna show up in X many years. He doesn't even know when, if ever. He needed something that would last a long enough time to give him the best amount of time. So he said, oral tradition that's easy enough to pass down, and maybe he's smart enough to find something. But while the last scene was powerful with what he left on the record, I still. My problem was way different than what you were going. How does 3,700 years of inbreeding not make some kind of monsters? Like, these are all, well, that explains the eyes, but
so they were vastly different. 7 or it was like 8 pairs of people.
Right.
I think eventually you would be able to diverge enough to where it's not an issue.
Okay. But I'm saying like that number just from there grew from 8 to maybe 30. Really? You would think that they would want to just...
Well, I'm sure they were dying off and shit like that.
That is true.
Remember, they don't have anything.
That was something that my buddy told me. Is like, dude, they should be inbred monsters by now. Because the genetic mixing would at some point, the sample size seemed to be so small. You'd think they'd have at least a couple thousand. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they went off and did some village evangelization somewhere.
I don't know, because look at like villages in Africa modern times. It's not like they got massive.
That's fair. That's a good point.
Or like Indian tribes didn't get insane.
Yeah. Still explains the eyes, though. That's what I'm working with. That's actually the reason I think the eyes are weird, because that's the one thing that happened. But everyone else, they're all like, some like the chicks, like just in general, they look like genetic perfect specimens. Like they're like, aside from whatever, they're all like, there isn't like an ugly person that lives in that village. Maybe like Mantle and Magma, but Magma's like huge. He's a gorilla.
Magma's fine. Like he's ripped and
he's shredded. Mantle's a little fucked up, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Were they just not like Japanese Gaston and what's his little henchman's name? Like he essentially is that world's version of Gaston and whatever, the LeFou. That's it from Beauty and the Beast.
I was like, I have no absolute idea what you're talking about.
Have you ever seen Beauty and the Beast?
Probably when I was like 3.
I forgot. I did theater a lot, so I think I've seen it more than 20 times. Any hoozle, they're essentially, that's the dynamic they have. Magma is like
you forgot I played sports.
Sports are for nerds. No, basically, Magma is this like beef Midas Right dude that probably would have found more love over in the Tsukasa Kingdom of Might. And then he had this little shrimpy sidekick Mantle, who was this little conniving piece of shit. He was just like, was cause mischief and like do his bidding. To basically try to swindle Senku out of being able to build his kingdom of science, and I didn't really find them to be that fun. I don't know. I think they were my least favorite characters, only because.
So I turned out to like Magma near the end because I mean, what the show really is doing is like there's basically adversity between Senku and all these people that he's basically coming back to try to help.
Right.
And use.
Essentially,
but, yeah. I mean, he basically wins them all over with different ways of making their life either easier, more whimsical, more entertaining, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so Magma at some point basically decides not to kill Senku and Chrome, and he says, basically he goes, if you keep surprising me and keeping it interesting, I will leave you alive and I won't kill you.
And I think he represents the late believer in science, because it's just like there's gonna be people in the world that Senku's trying to build that like, oh yeah, because if there's this village, who's to say there isn't like a couple dozen others around the world that he's basically have to go try to build with, and he's gonna have to be more and more impressive to these people that have been living there for potentially thousands of years. So.
I mean, I'd say by the end of the season, though, he's locked it in. Like, nobody's leaving that.
No, he's got an army, for sure.
I mean, they've got, like, legit power.
Yeah.
They're working on, like, cell phones or basically radio towers.
Which is insane.
Walkie-talkies.
And I guess it's one gripe I had, too. I think that the conflict between Tsukasa and Senku and their respective kingdoms, I don't like that it added what felt like artificial time crunches to this, but it did add the requirement to build specific inventions, right? He could have just been, increasing slowly, willy-nilly. He had an entire lifetime to do this. Why not just go in the pace and do the things he wants to? But Tsukasa's threat added direction. It added purpose to each of his like, he wouldn't probably gone for making communication if not under threat of potential war. He probably would have went somewhere else.
Yeah, and then my third gripe is if Tsukasa would just wipe them out. There's no necessity after he's basically unpetrified a lot of people.
Right.
To wait.
Didn't he
he's
think
scared of guns.
He thinks he had guns. Then he finds that those guns are bullshit.
What kind of idiot expects you to make rifled weapons in the prehistoric era without being able to make like a lot of steel and a lot of things like that?
That's what they did eventually make.
Yeah, but because he left so much time for him to do this.
Exactly.
Stuff.
But
the second he knew he was alive, he should have sent a whole squad. And then regardless of what weapons you have, you can't freaking win.
That's our big brain boy Senku knowing all that. He runs mental laps around Tsukasa.
What I don't know why didn't you just start making like landmines and shit?
Yeah, actually that'd been legit. Why didn't you just make a fuck ton of landmines?
Like make a field of landmines and be like, everyone from my village, don't go over there. And then if any of those assholes come over here, they explode, and everyone's like, okay, we're not doing that anymore.
Wow, you're actually a god. Thank you, Senku.
All right then.
Yeah, and I know it sounds like we're got more gripes than what we were talking about earlier in this show. I think they all center around this conflict between Tsukasa and Senku. It's weird because I think what I said, that the show doesn't need a lot of action because the science is the action. That conflict kind of every so often nudged in on science's game. Like, you probably could have never had, Tsukasa could have just shown up at the end of the season as a super twist. Like, yeah, we got a fucking army and it's about to go down, like, in the spring. That's all you would need.
It's about to go down.
All you would need is one word that, hey, Tsukasa is making an army. I think he knows you're alive. Oh, shit. That works. When's he coming? Next spring. That's it. No more other.
Now, bitch.
Yeah, now, bitch.
Hello.
That's all the involvement you need. And I don't know. I think that hopefully in Stone Wars, we get to see, Senku's technology in action in a more clever way. Season 1 definitely felt like the build-up to something big. And I fear that adding this massive conflict would dampen what made Dr. Stone so good. We won't get that scientific advancement anymore. Now it's application, sure, but is that why you necessarily watched it? For a war?
I think they're going to have to do a lot of things other than just having, superior communication.
You're right.
They're going to need a lot of stuff to overcome just the overall might of this guy's army, because basically what happens is once they split up, Tsukasa has monopolized. Basically, they use nitric acid, which they make from guano, which is bat poop.
Bat shit.
They basically monopolize that resource and constantly are going over to petrified people and unpetrifying them.
Yes.
Only the youngins, of course. But so that, to me, they'll have such an advantage in just pure manpower that Senku's going to have to get very creative with how he deals with some of those issues.
I think that's the wager he made, because he knew what he left behind. He knew he left the secret ingredient, the special sauce, so to speak, because he knew that, okay, this is a village of people. He didn't even know if it was a village. It could have just been a small commune of people, but that's the risk he took. He believed in science so much that just a few more hands could be exponentially more powerful than an army in Tsukasa's
Well, it's
hands.
not really like he had a choice. The guy was going to kill him.
That's true. I don't know. I felt like he tried to kind of like sneak back. Maybe he's just biding his time before he can. Maybe he thinks he can find it somewhere else. I don't know. But the whole time,
my assumption is what he's planning to do is just show like supreme technological advancements,
right?
And basically pull those guys to his side and be like, look, you can join my society or I wipe you the fuck out.
We have swords, motherfucker.
Like, and swords are going to be a big deal, but
yeah, they are.
They have 5 people that can use them,
Right.
So they got to like work on some of those situations. One like little confusion I have is like, yes, you don't have the bat shit cave anymore, but where's like
shit cave?
There's got to be some other like nitric like acid he could make.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, they've got all this time. They've made sulfa drugs, like the world's first antibiotics. They made glass, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, and he made like
freaking light bulbs with vacuums in them. Like,
he made vacuum tubes.
Yeah.
Like, he made an entire radio communication system. It's insane. But you're right. In all of that progress, you'd think that at some point they would have went out. Was it because he was under surveillance? I don't know. I mean,
no, it's a time crunch. He had so that's the one benefit to the time crunch is he had specific things he had to do, and he couldn't get carried away with other things. Right. It very very much focused him on very few tasks. He had to make antibiotics or Ruri dies. Yeah. He has to, and which is so. There's one cool thing. Ruri has pneumonia. Yeah. Which is what a lot of the people die from his dad's generation that were back on Earth. Right. After they came back from the ISS. A lot of them died from simple little...
because they were away from it for so long, right?
No, they died from pneumonia, and they didn't have antibiotics because they didn't make them.
From Senku's dad's time.
Yeah, remember they come back from the ISS. They start building their village.
They died when they landed, and they didn't have all the goods, the meds.
Goods,
yeah, I get what you're saying. So basically, he knew that, all right, this is something that's been plaguing this village for a while. They even have a name for it, and all he has, and it's
no, that's not why he knew about it. I was just saying it was a funny, not funny, but it was ironic that the previous heads of the village had died from pneumonia.
Right.
And like they didn't spend time making that, right? And then, he has a direction and he solves the disease, quote unquote, that she has.
What was the main purpose of that? It was because he needed to basically win. Was it a win favor thing, or he needed to become the head of the village? That was from the tournament.
So he needed to win favor and basically cement Kohaku as like his main warrior, because she's an absolute monster.
She's a freak beast. Like they call her the gorilla for a reason,
which is hilarious every time.
She hates it, but it's true. But yeah, so basically, the whole time he's willing to make the cure-all drug to essentially, win so much favor that they're like, "What do we do, Master? What do we do?" I don't know, man. It just feels like if they had left the mission of I need to save everybody, which he will do, which is that's his Wizard King, that's his Hokage, that's his thing. I don't know. I felt like the conflict it feels like it's kind of encroaching on why I love this show so much, and it's just I hope that Stone Wars doesn't turn out to be conflict heavy. It's gonna be, but I mean, at least the focus is on the actual conflict. I want to see science's victory in said conflict.
I don't know, because think about Lost, right?
Yeah.
The whole idea is these people, quote unquote, crash land on an island,
quote
and
unquote,
for some reason they're getting picked off and things like that, right?
Right.
But they still are trying to figure out what happened in the beginning. I think you're gonna get something very similar where they're like, they have to solve this petrification thing.
Yes, and its origins for sure.
Right. Or else what was the point of all of this, right? If you just build a society but we don't solve the original issue,
right?
The confusion, or like, what is the point is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But I think the conflict will help in that it'll always like add some layer to anything they're doing.
Yes. Okay.
I just doubt there's going to be times where they are like chilling and they're like, well, I don't know, let's make Twinkies. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
I really
it could get really Twinkie out of hand.
That's true.
If they don't have like actual goals they have to complete.
True.
Because Senku is an eccentric, man.
He is, and the thing is, when left to no timeline, he will make fucking Twinkies.
Yeah,
like,
that's the kind of that's the kind of thing. He'd build a rocket before he learned how to make glass, and you're like, wait a minute,
what the fuck is this? So at the end of the day, man, out of 100, where do you put this show?
Oh man, Ricky, I was really not prepared to actually rate it.
Really?
I wasn't.
I'll toss it as a 94. 94 out of 100. It's up there.
95.
Do you just Price is Right me?
I did.
You just Bob Barker my ass?
How
dare you? How dare you, sir?
$1.
But last question, though, I think on this show, just total left field, no information guess. What do you what would you like to see the petrification's origin be?
So what I think would be interesting is if Senku starts reviving older humans again.
Yeah.
And they somehow revive the one that effing did it.
Yeah.
Some mad scientist that created a bomb or something like that.
Right.
Or like, I don't know, something EMP type situation.
Yeah.
I think that would be freaking hilarious.
Basically put him into servitude, like, you better fucking make the reverse or else you're, oh boy.
I mean, I don't know how the
story logistically would go from there.
Yeah, like the conflict from there. But I think that's the kind of thing that will end up being what happened. I don't think it can be a natural phenomenon because it was really weird.
Yeah.
And only like certain animals got petrified.
Yes. So I had a thought, and what I'd love to see in the final stages, he comes across people that are still alive, just like this tribe, and it is 100% bona fide, grade A, grass-fed magic. It's straight up magic. And he then basically comes to grips with, holy shit, there's things in this world that science can't explain or cause, or can it? And then not only does he use science to explain it, but uses science to reverse it once he understands the magic's origin. Basically uses science to trump magic. Fuck you, magic, science wins.
He uses alchemy like Edward Elric.
He sees truth, loses his hair.
Yeah. No, I think that could be interesting. Or like he just like one day stumbles upon an elf and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Straight up keyboard bitch. Like,
yeah.
did you just go to that tree?
What the fuck?
What the? Yeah, our magic oven went off a little too hot.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty interesting. Obviously, I think mine has a larger chance of being what happens.
But elves, you're saying there's a chance. Okay, you heard it from Ethan's mouth.
Not?
Probably elves. It's probably elves. Well, man, I gave you time to think. Is it truly a 95?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay,
look, I
you.
love the show.
It's a good show.
I love the base point of saying, look, don't take this stuff for granted.
Yes, very
because
much
I think it's very easy in these days and ages to
you.
just have this bloody phone on you the whole day.
He's done it again.
And just you get carried away, right? Just
yeah,
like take your eyes up off the screen, mate, and just look up to the sky and be like, bloody Nora.
This guy knows a thing or two about getting carried away.
Yeah, just like kind of being thankful for what we have. I think that really is the main crux of like definitely the finale, but like a lot of the show, because like showing cavemen the ability to make freaking cotton candy, like it's so whimsical and dumb, but it's like holy
right, for them
shit.
It's insane. I think for me, it's the show does a really good job at kind of what you were saying. Don't take it for granted, but know that science in and of itself can be used for a lot of good in lives. I'm actually not the biggest fan about how it sometimes seems to put modern society on a pedestal a little bit.
You heard it here first, folks. Ricky hates modern society
dystopia
and science.
For everything. Apocalypse is now.
Anarchy!
No, but I mean, they do sometimes. They put modern society on a pedestal, but that is kind of the perspective of a audience living in that society seeing it. But to people who know nothing of it, he could basically do kind of what Tsukasa would like to and reshape the world in a better way and put science in a much more utilitarian and communal light. And I think
look, I'm
gonna
be honest with you.
Yeah,
we're the best humans that's ever lived
in this room.
Well, definitely, but in general. So, like,
don't tell Weeby that, dude. He's like in this room right now.
Oh no, there he is in the corner. He keeps changing the lights back there. You see the
that's him.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
No, so I don't know. I think it is an interesting thought to be like this. We are both the dumbest and smartest generation of all time.
Wow, I actually love that. It's true, and I want to leave it on that because something for you to think about, class. Yeah. I want a full essay
about.
Well, yeah, something.
That's your homework. Think about it.
Knock that around your little noggins for a little bit, and I want to see an essay about what he just said. So, thanks y'all for listening so much. Dr. Stone is a great show. Go watch it. It is basically in part produced by Crunchyroll, maybe funded in a way. So it is on Crunchyroll or something like that. Thank you for listening to the episode. YouTube gang, thank you so much for tuning in on the YouTube.
Hey guys, please like, comment, subscribe.
And hit that bell button for all of our video casts. If you like to have only your earballs tickled and not your eyes, you can go to Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Indeed. You can email us anything you want to hear on the podcast. We're open to suggestions. We haven't got one yet, but we'll do it. You want to be the first? weebologypodcast@gmail.com. Right. And hit us up on our Instagram if you want to DM us the same stuff at weebology.podcast. We got memes on memes and news. Oh, we're starting to twist it up. We're going to give you guys some anime news as well, like the One Piece live action adaptation that was just announced by Netflix. We'll get into that. Yeah, and Bleach 2020 is coming up soon. Yeah. We don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be announced. Yes.
Yeah, and then I also just created a Twitter because
create a Twitter.
We had one fan that only had a Twitter, and
by Ghana, we're here for you guys.
Yeah, very much wanted to be a part of our community, so I added a Twitter. It is Weebology P, I think.
I don't know, dude. You set it up.
I think it's Weebology P. There's not enough freaking letters or something. I don't know.
That's actually Weebology P.
I'll look at it. I want to change it to either at Weebology or at Weebology Podcast. So
tweet at the P.
Just be ready for that. Do not tweet at the P.
Tweet at the P.
Don't tweet at the P.
But I think that's honestly it. Hey, man, they got learned.
Yeah, and all the dummies at that village, Ishigami village, got learned too.
Yep. We got burnt, and we got a little bit turned.
Y'all got turned.
Y'all got turned, sure.
Right?
Hopefully.
Good episode?
Yeah, good episode.
I don't know. Anyway, see ya. Deuces.
I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this has been Weebology.
Fuck me.
Fumbled it, dude. You fumbled it.
Jesus.